Well, folks, we're visiting today with Andrew Must. Andrew is the president and founder of Seven Rivers Design and Build, located in Lewisburg, West Virginia. Andrew, thanks for being on the podcast today, man.
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks
all the way
having
from
me.
Lewisburg. Thank you for making the drive up. Appreciate you. I look forward to learning more about your business.
Great.
Positively West Virginia is powered by Breezeline high-speed fiber internet and sponsored by Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Key of Morgantown, and Storymaker. With the help of these sponsors, we are able to share the positive business stories of West Virginians, including the one featured in today's episode.
Andrew, tell us a little bit about what you do at Seven Rivers Design and Build in Lewisburg, West Virginia.
So we're a construction company. Our current focus and bread and butter is building custom homes for individual clients. So we don't do much speculative development or spec houses or anything like that.
Yeah.
For the most part, we work directly with the client who wants to build typically their dream home. And we do that. So we take a project from the concept all the way to the completion of the project, turnkey. And often we will do the design for the project as well. So we have an in-house design team in the company.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, as you describe that, you've articulated it beautifully. Somebody has an idea for their dream home, and they come to you, and you handle everything, the design and the construction.
That's right.
At the end, you hand them the keys and say, "Here's your dream home."
Here's your
That's
house.
got to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's a
feeling.
satisfying process for sure.
Yeah. So take us back, Andrew. You're from West Virginia. You
I am.
grew up in Pocahontas County.
I did. Yeah, just
All right.
outside of Hillsborough.
All right. So tell us about how you got into this line of work in the construction, design, build.
Well, I didn't come from a construction family per se, but when I was a kid, my parents built their own house, and my dad, did some of the work, but they had a contractor, but he was very involved in it.
Yeah.
My mom was involved in the design. She's always been a designer kind of on the side.
Yeah.
And I think I was around 4 or 5 during that time period when that build was happening. And it was definitely a formative experience for me. I think I spent a ton of time, it was before I really started primary school.
Yeah.
So I was there on the job site, every single day, just kind of checking it out, absorbing it, talking to the guys as a little kid, and
How cool is that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And I didn't, later in middle school, high school, I didn't reflect on that. I didn't realize, I don't think that had an impact on me.
Yeah. A seed was planted.
Yeah, for sure. And in high school, I never even considered going into construction. I was kind of into science and thought I might go into engineering or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think between my junior and senior year, maybe it was sophomore and junior, I started doing carpentry during the summer.
Yeah.
Just as a summer job, working for a local builder. And I did that, I think, for 3 years in a row. And that kind of really piqued my interest at that point.
Yeah.
And I still didn't think of it as a career path necessarily. When I went to college, I went to a school in Ohio called Wittenberg University for 2 years, and I transferred to here, Morgantown.
WVU?
So I got my degree from WVU,
Okay, what was that in?
in geography.
Okay.
So, and I picked that mainly because it was the quickest path to graduation at the time. It was very, very interesting,
Yeah, of
and I
course,
loved it. I mean, the program is great here.
That's great.
But I didn't go into it being like, oh, I want to be a geographer. It just seemed like an interesting thing to do, and it was a way to get a degree.
Sure.
I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. So
Yeah, that's good.
after that, I traveled for a little while and did some different internships and returned to Pocahontas County when I was maybe 24 or something, and started picking up odd jobs in construction.
Yeah.
And from there, just kind of, I don't know, more things kept happening, more jobs kept coming my way, and it turned into a career, at least a calling at that time.
Yeah.
And I would say I should back up and also say that there's a history of construction in my family. At least both of my grandparents grandfathers were engineers. And my great grandfather was an entrepreneur, big time, doing lots of different things, making and losing fortunes in the Depression and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He got out of all of it, but that was, I think, that thread of entrepreneurial and like the urge to build, like has kind of carried through
That's amazing.
from those generations.
Yeah.
And I always heard those stories when I was a kid. And I think being an entrepreneur was just kind of like came naturally to me. It was never felt like a choice. It was just like what I did.
Yeah, it's part of your heritage. You know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. Like now, 2025, you're kind of carrying on that legacy of your great grandpa, you know,
for sure.
Parents and
neither of my parents were entrepreneurs or ran their own businesses. You know, it was not exactly. I mean, it's kind of out of left field in a way for me to jump into that, but it felt natural.
Yeah. So when did you start your company? You know, I think you mentioned 2009. You kind of got into it, and then, you know, you have this entity, this company called Seven Rivers Design and Build.
I started the sole proprietorship, I think, in 2009, maybe, and then turned into an actual LLC maybe in 2012 or 2013.
Okay. Yeah.
And
that's great.
I think it must have been around 2009. My aunt had been living in South Carolina, and she had moved to Lewisburg, and then she ended up buying a old dilapidated house in Hillsborough, very close to where I was living at the time after I'd, gotten done with school and come back and was living there. And she bought it at an auction for like, next to nothing, and was like, I'm going to fix this up. And she was an antique dealer. She had little antique shops and had one in Lewisburg, had one in Charleston, South Carolina. And she decided to relocate her shop to there, but needed to fix up the building and was trying to figure out who to hire to do it. And we were talking, and I was like, well, maybe I should just take this on. I didn't have the experience that I probably should have going into it, but I was confident I could figure it out and definitely give her a decent deal, Yeah. So that was probably the first big opportunity that kind of came my way that started like taking me down that path. For a year before that, maybe I had been back around the area and was working kind of odd jobs, but all in the construction area. Yeah. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I can this is a fairly large, seemed like a huge job at the time. I was like, going to fix up this entire house. But so I hired a couple friends and established a sole proprietorship and kind of, started at that point, really.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that backstory. So thank you for sharing that. How many folks do you have working for you now?
Around 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a nice size company.
Yeah.
So Andrew, if you could tell us, I mean, I was on your website prior to this interview, just checking you out and everything, and your work is extraordinary. Beautiful.
Yeah,
so tell us a little bit about what you're known for.
Well, I think our reputation is staked on high quality construction, first of all. I mean, we don't compromise on quality. Even if we end up losing money on a project, that's the most important thing. And that has happened before, for sure. So I would say that's number one, is like our projects are going to be high quality and we're not going to cut corners. And you're going to know that when you're, in the house or seeing it, experiencing it. And then our design as well, I think, sets us apart. Our ability to both design and execute the project, it rolls everything together into a more smooth and continuous process rather than having one entity design it and then bidding it out to multiple builders and then choosing one. There's more opportunity for a disconnection in that process and conflicting incentives too, I think. So that's great. Those two things are big, definitely. And I think the culture we've created in the business is also, distinctive. I think we have a lot of people that have been there for a while. And so I like to think it's a good place to work. And I think it is. I know it is. Yeah. That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
Your prescriptions are designed to keep you healthy, active, full of life. At Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're making vital medicine more affordable. Because when your prescriptions don't cost an arm and a leg, you can use those limbs for something more meaningful. Because life. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, West Virginia.
Folks, we're visiting once again with Andrew Must. He is the president, founder of Seven Rivers Design and Build, located in Lewisburg, West Virginia. Andrew, you were talking about culture, and I think that every business has a culture. Sometimes it's intentionally derived. Sometimes it's the de facto culture, right?
Absolutely.
Whatever it becomes, it becomes. And you mentioned culture, so I wanted to kind of dive into that. Talk a little bit about the culture there at your company.
Well, we definitely treat our people well as we can in terms of, pay and all of that, of course. And you have to do that. That's like a bare minimum, I think. But we also, I feel like it almost feels like a big family, really. Yeah. And like I said a minute ago, we've got quite a few folks who have been there for many years. I mean, close to 10, maybe even more than that for one or two. So yeah, that's a big deal. And it's my approach to at least leadership and to the culture of the business is like a kind of participatory thing. I mean, we have, there is somewhat of a hierarchy in the business, as there has to be, but we always try to bring everybody's feedback and opinions and thoughts into the mix of any kind of decision making.
Amazing. Yeah.
And that, I think that creates engagement. Like people feel like they're participating in the company, not just like a worker.
Yeah. Your team members can feel like they're heard, that their opinions matter, that their talents and the gifts that they're bringing in to your company are important to you.
Yeah. And that's very important. I mean, it really is. And maybe, I don't know that we're always perfect about that. And you can always look at ways to improve, but I would say that if you ask folks who work at Seven Rivers, they would agree.
Yeah, that's great. What would you say, Andrew, is the thing that you're most excited about for your company right now?
Well, we are currently, this past summer, we just completed an office and shop building that we built ourselves from the ground up on a piece of property in Max Welton. Yeah. Our office had been in downtown Lewisburg, but it was just an office. We didn't have a physical shop space. Yeah. So we built, it took well over a year to build the thing, and it's done. We moved in July. That's great. Part of that is, it's always been my dream to move towards some prefabrication, or at least offsite construction, in order to, streamline the process and make the process of building a building more efficient and potentially quicker and potentially less expensive. So I've, on the side, I've always researched and read about other companies that are doing stuff like this, kind of just pushing the envelope on how things are built. Rather than just doing it the conventional way, which is how it's been done since the 50s or even, earlier than that. Yeah. But really, the way a stick-built house is built on site is extremely similar to the way it was built 70, 80 years ago.
It's amazing. Even with the advancement of materials and so forth, we're still doing it the way.
And the productivity of the industry has actually gone down, whereas almost every other industry, possibly every other industry in this country, the productivity has really gone up since the 60s.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to, in a sense, innovate the construction business. And I find it interesting that the Hive awarded you and your company the Innovative Business of the Year last year. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that award meant and
Sure.
Your relationship maybe with the Hive?
Yeah, I've worked with the Hive maybe for a year now. With Mary Legg specifically, who's great. Yeah. She's a business coach, I guess you could say, at the Hive. And I think that's actually how you got connected with us. Yeah. But so, they told me we were getting Innovative Business of the Year out of the blue pretty much. And I guess that was probably in large part due to what we're doing in terms of offsite construction at our facility.
I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really awesome. How important, Andrew, is it to have like a network of people that can maybe bounce ideas off of or consult with, like the Hive?
Well, I would say it's extremely important if you want to grow. Yeah. If you're not interested in growth, whether it's personal or your business or whatever, then it's not very important. But if you do want to grow and improve, then it's essential, because you're not going to figure it all out yourself. Yeah. You got to have, many people have done many things and we can learn from them, right? So a network is the opportunity to do that. And so tapping into larger, things and networks and groups of people and industry groups, whatever it might be, is very important, I would say.
Yeah. Well, you hit on something very important. Entrepreneurship is in your family. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I am. And when you own your own business, it sometimes can be an isolated feeling that you have, like, I'm in this and man, I don't have all the answers. But having a group of people around you that you can turn to, and maybe they've traveled down that road before, or maybe they have access to resources that you didn't even know existed.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's huge, really, because entrepreneurship can be a lonely venture. It really can. I mean, it's unusual. First of all, I don't know what the percentage of people in this country is that are entrepreneurs, but it's not very high.
Right.
Because there's risk involved. I mean, you have to figure a lot of stuff out. There's always going to be failure. It's inherent to starting a business is failure. So you have to be okay with that.
Well, I have this saying, fail fast.
Right.
If you're going to fail, do it quick and get it over with.
Get it over with, and then learn from it, and then keep going, right?
That's right.
That's for the next opportunity.
No, that's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
So with your customer base, where are you primarily doing your work, these design builds?
Currently, all of our projects are in the Greenbrier Valley around Lewisburg area.
Yeah.
So within 40 minutes of Lewisburg at the moment. We work farther out sometimes. Sometimes we'll do projects in Pocahontas County or Summers County, Monroe County, but currently everything's right around Lewisburg.
Yeah, that's great. And how's business going?
It's good. I mean, we're extremely busy right now.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
Always have been. I don't know what the future holds. I mean, the economy seems slightly uncertain right now, but I think I'm confident. I mean, we're upping our marketing game a little bit right now in order to try to drive a pipeline of work and pick and choose clients as much as we possibly can.
That's good. When we come back, we'll talk about that. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back. Stay connected with an unbeatable deal from Breezeline. Voted best in Mountaineer Country for their reliable, high-speed fiber internet for a low cost, Breezeline is the best gig in town. Here at InnerAction Media, we rely on high-speed internet every single day to ensure we can deliver the best content possible for our clients and when we publish Positively West Virginia each week. That's why we use Breezeline. It's affordable, fast, and they're great people as well. Learn more about Breezeline's internet, TV, and mobile options at breezeline.com. Folks, we're visiting once again with Andrew Must. He's the president and founder of Seven Rivers Design and Build, located in Lewisburg, West Virginia. Andrew, right before the break there, we were talking about building your pipeline. How do you get the word out for a custom home design build company?
I mean, up until this point, it's pretty much all been word of mouth reference. Which is a great way to get business.
Absolutely.
But as you scale a company, you can't rely on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still going to be a core part of how we get business, I'm sure. But you have to diversify, I guess, the channels through which people hear about you.
And there's so many today.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm talking to somebody who knows a lot about this, obviously. But in my limit, I mean, I'm not a marketer. I'm not a salesman necessarily. I'm going to have to do both of those things. Yeah. But we're working with a company in Lewisburg, a small marketing branding company right now to kind of develop our strategy.
I love that. Yeah.
We're just going to be definitely getting some stuff out there on social media more than we have in the past, but also developing some actual physical marketing collateral in the form of pamphlets and brochures that I can hand out to realtors in the area, et cetera, et cetera.
It's amazing. Like, you're talking about this, and you've been in business for so long and haven't needed that, but
we haven't.
But you want to scale. You got mouths to feed and mortgages to pay.
We got to feed the machine. Yeah,
that's good.
And I think a lot of contractors are not heavy on the marketing at all.
Yeah.
You get into construction because you build stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
And you're not doing it because you're a salesman or a marketing guru.
Right.
But for me, I'm getting out of the owner operator territory and becoming more of an actual, business leader, hopefully.
Yeah.
And with that, as you scale, you start to delegate a lot of the tasks. I'm not on the site swinging a hammer anymore. I haven't been for a few years.
Right.
And so we're getting to the point where our overhead is higher. It's getting real, So
I get it. 100%. Well, a lot of businesses, fail in the first couple of years.
They do.
By the time, time you're in that 5 to 10 years, there's like an opportunity there, man. You're either going to make it or you don't. When you get to that 10-year mark and you're like, okay, I think we're going to make it. But the challenges are different, and there's more zeros. That's what I always say. There's more zeros.
Very different, as you grow.
Well, that's good. I appreciate you sharing that. In terms of the long-term vision for your company, what does that look like? Where do you see this going?
Well, as I started talking about a little bit earlier, we're developing offsite construction capacity right now, which is so we built a shop facility.
Right.
It's something, including our office
How many
space,
square feet?
something like 11,000.
11,000 square feet.
Yeah, it's not small.
Yeah, that's a nice.
It's a decent sized building. And so, but really it's like at the minimum size that it could be for what we're trying to do in terms of panelized construction, which is that we are building floor panels, wall panels, and roof panels in our facility.
Based on a custom design. These aren't like just...
Yeah, based on custom design. They're not small either. I mean, they're 10 feet tall by 20 feet long. So they're pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the wall panels they already have siding and windows pre-installed.
No kidding.
So we're trying to cut out as much of that certain on-site work that is subject to weather and delay, like lots of different things. Like the longer you're on site, the longer the window is open for any kind of adverse event. So you want to kind of make that as predictable as you possibly can.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's
smart.
Yeah. So we're at the very beginning of that. We've done 2 projects. Neither of them are actually totally finished at this moment. I mean, because we started the first one in both around February, I think.
Yeah.
So we've built the panels for 2 structures and assembled them already in that time period, and we're just doing the finish work on them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking as a benefit to the end user, the customer, right? The customer is the hero of the story.
Sure.
And I've built a couple buildings in my life, and it always kind of breaks my heart. You go out there and it's rained for 3 days, and all your underlayment and
I know
it's all soaked, and you're like, oh my goodness, is this going to be?
It's not a great way of doing things, honestly.
So it sounds really cool what you're doing. I admire you for not only taking the risk, but to be innovative. We talked about innovation and just trying to come up with a better way to solve the problem.
Sure.
And
awesome. I mean,
I
I didn't invent this methodology. In the summer of 23, which is almost 2 years ago at this point, I spent 3 weeks traveling around Germany, Austria, mostly, in terms of the prefab stuff, Germany and Austria, and the Czech Republic, actually, visiting companies, visiting equipment manufacturers, and kind of seeing how the European panelized construction model works. Because they've been doing it there for a while.
Yeah.
And the market share of panelized builds has just continued to rise consistently for the past 20 years.
For all the reasons we're talking about.
Yeah, for all the reasons we're talking about. I mean, it's just, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just getting there. Like, changing the paradigm for any industry is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Construction, not least, because it's just the way of doing things is very entrenched.
Yeah.
Everybody, you do things how they've been done. It's like how my grandpa built stuff.
Exactly.
It's like a kind of a stubborn industry, I think. Which I understand, because I've been in it for a while, and I've done plenty of inefficient things over the years. So it's like it's like we were talking earlier. You want to grow, and you want to glean information from other people and other groups and even other countries. So we went over there and checked out how they were doing it, and ended up buying equipment from a company in Prague, from the Czech Republic, and having it shipped here. This past summer. And commissioned all of that in the fall. And so we're kind of following their playbook, honestly. I mean, we're adapting it to conditions here.
Yeah.
But we're not reinventing the wheel as much as possible.
That's amazing. What's the average, if you have an average type square foot home that you're building? What does it look like? Our custom homes that we're building a house right now that's 6,200 square feet. Wow. But
we've built houses that are, 12 to 1,500 also. It really runs the gamut. But I would say over the past few years, the average is probably 2,500 to 3,000.
That's great.
Yeah. But I think that's going to change. I mean, our business model is kind of bifurcating a little bit right now. I would say we're going to continue doing high-end custom. I mean, because that's our current bread and butter, and we're really good at it.
Yeah.
And a lot of those will be site built without even using the panelization process that I'm talking about. We'll integrate that in over time, definitely. But at the same time, we're trying to start developing a line of houses that are smaller, more modest, more economical, and developing maybe 5 design templates that are already done and dialed in that people can choose from, and you can tweak small things about them, but the kind of everything under the hood is the same. So it's almost a templatized approach to doing it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we're developing, I don't know, I'm saying 5, somewhere in that range of designs that we think are really good.
Those are designs that your team's putting together too?
Yeah. Yep.
So you got the design and the build. So these are
going
to be, I don't know if the right word is affordable housing, but something that's a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
affordable.
Hopefully that's the idea. I don't know.
You hear that a lot in the construction business, or even just in economic development.
It's a national crisis. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
And that's because construction costs are out of control.
Yeah.
Like I can see they are. I mean,
is it because of the materials and labor, or a combination of
both,
all that? Yeah.
For sure, both. Yeah. And just the low productivity of the industry in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because of productivity, really.
Do you feel that there's adequate tradespeople out there, like they can swing a hammer and
I don't
plumb a
not at all.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
So that's part of the problem too.
It's a huge part of the problem. Yeah, it's part of the reason costs are high and it's hard to find skilled people. I mean, you can trace the origins of that problem all the way to our education system, or lots of different cultural values or whatever, but it's definitely an issue.
Yeah, we've seen this push over the last several decades of higher education. We talked about degree in geography, mine's in journalism. But we kind of put the accelerator off of the trades.
Yeah,
and kind of
for sure.
I don't want to say we degraded that, but we almost did.
In a way,
I think that's. We said, hey, go over here, and now there's almost a swing of the pendulum on the other direction, saying, hey, the trades is where it's at.
I think so. I mean, you can make good money in the trades, for sure.
Plumbing, welding,
and
carpentry.
At the end of the day, it's more satisfying than a lot of other occupations, honestly.
Yeah, that's super cool. Well, thanks for going down that avenue.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about leadership, Andrew, and anytime I have a leader sitting across from me, I'm a student of leadership. Okay. And so I love to get the opinions and thoughts, but just a simple question about leadership. What's the most important attribute do you think that a successful business leader needs to have today?
Well, I think the ability to listen to the people that you're involved with is huge. Yeah. And sometimes you have to make an executive decision and you've got to, at the end of the day, drive the ship, right? Yeah. But I think really making it kind of, as I alluded to earlier, a participatory process and making sure that all voices are heard, and especially those who are closest to the problem, right? In order to make sure that the best solutions rise to the surface. So as a leader, your job is to facilitate that process, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's very important. I couldn't agree more, and I love hearing that. Yeah.
John Meyer, one of the guys in my company, who's pretty important to the business, always says, when something goes right, you give the credit to the people on the ground who are doing it. When something goes wrong, you take the blame yourself. And I think that's a powerful kind of leadership philosophy.
I love that. Very simple, but very, very true.
Yeah,
right.
It is for
wisdom.
Sure.
I mean, that's profound stuff. And I think about even in the world today, you can't have great leadership without excellent followership.
Sure. Yeah.
And being able to raise those issues up to the leader, I think is very important, and it gets dismissed a lot, but I think you bring up a great point, and listening is a very, very powerful trait. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You're a West Virginia guy. You own a business here, have somewhere around 20 employees, and been in business since 2009 when you originally started. What kind of advice would you give to somebody thinking about starting their own business here in West Virginia? What would you say to them?
Let's see. I mean, I think you should evaluate where you are in your life, definitely. I mean, when I started my business, the stakes were pretty low for me. Like, I didn't have really any assets to lose. And I didn't have a family. I didn't have a spouse. It was kind of like, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
It wasn't a big risk.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it if you have all those things, but you have to think very carefully about what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people go into business. Well, also, you need to make sure your spouse is okay with it.
There you go.
They need to know what you're getting
that's
into.
wise,
Yeah. But you have to understand that there's a lot more to running a business than whatever it is that you're passionate about starting a business for. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're a builder, like, you're doing it because you love building. But once you're running a business and you have some employees, you're not a carpenter anymore. You're a business person.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that comes along with that.
Have you ever read Michael Gerber's The E-Myth?
No, I haven't. I've heard a lot about it.
Because you're talking about it's one of the great lessons. That's why anybody that's ever thinking about starting a business, I highly encourage them to read that book.
Yeah, it's on my reading list. I haven't got to it yet.
It's one of those things. Well, you could have written the book, because just listening to you talk, I mean, there's life lessons that most business and I loved your advice. You got to understand where you're at in life, and you and I have a very similar path. When I started this company back in 2011, we're in our 14th year. I was at that moment where I was like, I always wanted to own my own business, but I was always getting a new promotion or a pay raise, and it kept taking me further from my goal.
Sure.
And then at one point I was like, I either got to do this now and risk it, or else I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
And that was my moment.
Took the plunge, right?
Took the plunge, and I was like, I know I can do it. And even with all the great intentions I had and the business plan that I had and everything. As soon as we got into it, the business plan was like, oh, actually the customer wants this. I got to go and listen to the customer.
That's how it works.
But it was fun to go back and just think about that from time to time, just how I got started. But you're spot on with your advice. I love it. And thank you for sharing that for us.
Yeah, no problem.
Andrew, we've covered so much in this interview, and I'm grateful for this conversation. I've learned a lot about you and what you're doing and what makes you tick. Is there anything else you think that our listeners should know about your story or your company, Seven Rivers Design and Build?
Well, nothing specific comes to mind. I mean, I would say that if you are able to successfully run your own business and kind of create your own job, it's a very satisfying and fulfilling thing to do.
Yeah.
So I certainly wouldn't discourage anybody from doing that.
Yeah.
You just have to really know that, like, it's not always easy. Like, my journey has had lots of ups and downs.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to. It's as you go through the trajectory of developing a business, I mean, the failures get bigger, as do the successes.
That's right.
And hopefully the successes are like tip the balance.
That's right.
That's kind of how it works.
Well, it's funny because just as you're talking about that, I have highs and lows in my day, sometimes in the same hour.
Yeah, sure. Like, exactly.
Hey, we got this, and we lost this, or whatever,
Yeah, it's constant.
And so it's constant. But that's why I run to the office every morning,
Sure.
I love the game of it. I love the people that we get to interact with and lead and be an example for.
Yeah.
I do have one other question just kind of occurred to me. Seven Rivers Design and Build. Where did the Seven Rivers come from?
So Seven Rivers originated in Pocahontas County, or at least that's how many I think originate there. Other people say there's 8.
Okay.
But for me, 7 is a better number. I think it's, so Seven Rivers started in Pocahontas County.
Oh, very cool.
It's the headwaters of
7 different rivers.
That's right.
Maybe 8, but we're 7. We're calling it 7.
Yeah, it's 7. And so I don't think any rivers flow into Pocahontas County. They all flow out. I mean, it's the highlands kind of the whole area.
Of course, yeah.
So it's a beautiful area.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I still live there. I live outside of Hillsboro and drive to Lewisburg every day.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. I love it. Well, Andrew, as we close out our time here today, how can our listeners learn more about you and Seven Rivers Design and Build?
Well, they could visit our website for starters, which is sevenriversdb.com, spelled out. We're also trying to maintain a better social media presence.
Yeah.
That hasn't always been my strong suit, but that's like a goal, I would say, this coming year.
Yeah.
So we're on Instagram and Facebook.
Love it.
Intermittently. So I would say the website's the best way, or they can reach out directly to me. All that information's on the website.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have links to all that in the show notes as well as on social media.
Great.
Give you guys a shout out. And I just encourage people to go check out your website because your work is, like I said, extraordinary, beautifully.
Thank you.
Well done. And so keep up the great work. I just want to remind folks we're visiting with Andrew Must. He is the president of Seven Rivers Design and Build in Lewisburg, West Virginia, doing great work in construction, design, build, and some innovative panel builds in his new shop there just outside of Lewisburg. Andrew, it's been an honor to have you on the show today. I love your work, and I want to encourage you to keep up the great work.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of Positively West Virginia. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on our show, drop us a line on our website at positively.wv.com. And of course, we appreciate your encouragement, sharing the great stories of people just like Andrew Must with your social media, getting the word out and helping promote all the great things happening in business in West Virginia. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, including our producer today, Mr. Jimmy Murray behind the controls, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.
We'd like to thank our partners, Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Key of Morgantown, InnerAction Media, Storymaker, and our studio sponsor, Breezeline, for helping to share these positive stories. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the Positively West Virginia podcast, visit positively.wv.com/sponsor.